How can I start making some money in skydiving? A lot of people, when they get their A license, they start looking around and looking at their bank account and realizing how much money they've spent. And they see some people making some money at skydiving and they think, man, that would be amazing. I wonder how long it'll take for me to be able to make some money at skydiving. Well, it depends on the lifestyle you want to live and how much you want to jump. It also depends on where you want to live and how much money you have. One of the fastest ways to make some money on the drop zone is to pack other people's parachutes. Technically, you're supposed to pack under the supervision of a certified rigger. A rigger is somebody who is certified by the FAA to pack reserve parachutes and other people's parachutes. But there's a rule that says that you can pack without being a rigger if you're being supervised by a rigger. Some places will let you pack as soon as you can demonstrate the ability to pack. Typical volume is about 50 to 200 pack jobs a week at $8 a pack job. You can make some tips too. If you're a rigger, you can pack reserves and do repairs after hours on your days off. Full time, expect to average somewhere between $250 and $1,200 a week, depending on the DZ, the weather, and how many days you work. The higher volume jobs are usually reserved for the most experienced packers and riggers. For example, DeLand and other high volume places require you to be a rigger to work the packing mat. You typically won't be able to jump much because you'll be working when the jumping is happening. There are also 9 to 5, Monday through Friday jobs for riggers at the manufacturers like UPT and SunPath and others who pack reserves all day and all week, and those guys make a decent living. You gotta have some sort of training, and usually it's on-the-job training, some mentorship, about 6 months and maybe $1,000, and you can become a rigger. The next easiest way to make some money on the drop zone is to work in the office, otherwise known as manifest. You don't even need to be a skydiver or know how to skydive to work manifest. Different places pay between $10 and $20 an hour, and you probably won't jump much because this job will require you to be working before and during and after the jumping is happening. The training is similar to being a packer, where it's just on-the-job training. Another way to make some money on the drop zone is to be a coach or a load organizer. Depending on your experience, you can get some jumps paid for and up to maybe even more than $300 a day. This is not typically consistent work, and the highest rate is reserved for the best in the world. Minimum training is about 6 months and maybe $10,000 in coaching from other people, wind tunnel training, etc. Coaching is the first step to becoming an AFF or a tandem instructor. Depending on the drop zone and how much you work, you can make probably about $35 to $45 per jump as an AFF or tandem instructor. Make somewhere between $10,000 and $75,000 a year full time. Average is less than $30,000 a year. Again, you won't be doing a lot of fun jumps because you'll be a slave to the students. It typically takes about 3 years and about $30,000 to get one of these ratings, and maybe even both. Probably one of the most fun jobs on the drop zone is a videographer. Similar to an AFF instructor or a tandem instructor, and depending on the DZ and how much you work, you can expect to get paid somewhere between $35 and $45 per jump, and make somewhere between $10,000 and $75,000 a year. Average is less than $30,000. Again, you won't be doing a lot of fun jumps because you'll be a slave to the students, but you can really work on your free fly skills and have a lot of independence and some creativity with these jumps. Although it does get monotonous because it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again. USPA says you're supposed to have a C license or 200 or more jumps before you can start jumping with a camera. Then it'll take you another 100 or 200 jumps to be able to be good enough to fly with the camera well enough to be able to make some money at it. So I'd say it's probably about a year or two and $10,000 before you can start making some money as a videographer. Somebody's got to fly the planes, and most pilots use flying skydivers as a path to build time so they can work for an airline someday and make big money. I've seen some situations where pilots actually pay to fly skydivers. Depending on the plane type, expect to make somewhere between $10 and $30 per load. On average, pilots fly anywhere between 5 and 20 loads a day. Training required? Commercial pilot's license will take you about 2 years and $50,000. The job of DZ manager varies widely, as some drop zones just designate the safety and training advisor as the DZ manager, and it's a volunteer position oftentimes, but at the larger DZs, it's a paid position where they're actually paid quite well. They get a 5-figure base salary, and they can do some coaching or some instruction, rigging, flying, whatever they want to earn some more money on top of that. Training required is at least 5 years, and it's going to cost you about $50,000 to get lots of different ratings and the experience necessary to be a DZ manager. Lots of people dream of owning their own drop zone, and you're going to want a lot of experience and knowledge before you try to go this route, because DZs go bust all the time. Pay ranges from not only going broke, but going into 6- and 7-figure debt to barely break even. Maybe even some of the larger drop zones make a couple $100,000 a year, depending on how many DZs they own and how well they operate them. Training required? Again, I'd say at least 5 years, several ratings, and about $500,000 in startup cash. Of course, there are lots of jobs off the DZ as well. Wind tunnel instructor. Nearly all U.S. wind tunnels are owned and operated by iFly, so pay is pretty similar across the board. This is sort of its own beast, as there are many jobs at an iFly that range from $15 an hour to an annual salary of $60,000 or more. The equipment manufacturers have lots of jobs, and there are lots of employees working for them, like sewing, and operations, and marketing, and shipping, and they pay anywhere between $10 an hour up to $100,000 or more. The highest paying jobs are reserved for people who have been in the industry a long time and have a deep knowledge and connections. If I'm being honest, working full-time and living in a trailer on the drop zone was one of the best times in my life. I got lucky and didn't pick up a drug habit or die, but I realized I'd be happier making a lot of money doing something else and skydiving as a hobby instead of it being my life. There are some who've worked their whole careers in the industry in one or all the positions mentioned above and have had extremely fulfilling lives. There's lots of other things to do other than the things I've mentioned. Just because you start on one path doesn't mean you're stuck doing that the rest of your life. Most people who work full-time still do side gigs on their days off, doing higher paying manual labor like construction, tree work, and other things like that. Nothing says you have to, though. It's up to you.